Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Money in the Law, my FM 101.3, your first class, first class radio symbol hung up here in my my boots. Money in the Law with Jay Marsden from the Marsden Law Group, one of the finest legal institutions, probably this side, north, south, east.
Since the Supreme Court, that's right.
North, south, east, and west of the Pecos. And I'm John Drohan from Main Effort Financial. We are also joined once again, graciously, by the Holliston Cable Access television station and represented by none other than Christian Bidet. Silent Christian is here. He's waving. Yep, we're waving to him. He's waving back for those of you in TV land. Now you can see that. Jay, great to see you again.
It's great to be here, my friend. Great to be here, my friend. Great to be here.
I'm always very excited about like the beginnings of the shows. I mean, for all the years that we've done, I can never remember being not pumped up for a show. And I remember like there's been times where I've been a little more pumped up for some shows than others. This goes back to maybe when we used to do some of those tastings.
Oh my God, I was just going to say the same as I think. Like, yeah, I was really excited for the microbrew review shows.
Why we thought that was okay? We did, and it seems that no one else really got too banged up about it. And there you go.
We might have to move on to the whiskey on the airwaves. Do that.
It's in the book. But I think I don't. And then there was this. Is it an FCC issue? And I don't know. I don't know what the actual ruling is. I think Ray may have mentioned that you may not be able to do it. However, how many times have you listened to a radio station, like particularly the sports stations, where they're like, they're live somewhere, they're at like, downtown, they're at like the,
well,
the
this weekend, everyone's, well, not everyone because of COVID, but in years past, everybody would be wherever the Super Bowl was.
Sure. So you'd be down in the Super Bowl, and they'd be broadcasting live.
And there may have been a beverage or two consumed during that type of event.
I was under the impression that it was that was happening, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe anyway. But anyway, so Jay and I, maybe we're cutting edge. We did that back in the that's in the AM days. So,
yeah, it was the AM. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was AM. Old school.
AM, you're
old school AM.
You're allowed to smoke in the building.
That's right. The 70s are alive and well.
Yeah, right. No, we didn't have catalytic converters in the car. No, we had regular gas in the cars we drove in.
You put the playpen in the back of the car. You put the kids in the playpen to kind of keep them corralled a little bit while you drive to New Hampshire.
While you drive to New Hampshire.
On Sunday to get some beer.
And God forbid, if your Grand Marquis, which you were driving, that time was probably brand new, if your Grand Marquis had a seatbelt like alert signal, I mean, it would be the worst thing, right? My father would be like, "What is this? This is bugging me," right? So we
plug these in and sit on it.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, he'd plug it in and sit on it, so you wouldn't have to deal with it.
Remember the ones that were on the door? Remember the door-mounted ones? Like you'd sit in and this like mechanical arm.
Oh, and it would come and get you.
Up and down, like you knew you were getting strapped into that thing. It was like getting into the space shuttle.
Yeah, it was like getting on a ride at Disney, right? It was like one of the, and you were like, "Oh, I feel good. I feel safe."
Yep, they were all business.
So yeah, back in those days, back in those AM days, Jay and I used to taste beer on the and actually it's funny, we used to spin it up like we would actually go to these micro breweries and and guys would give us sample
this on the radio. Put this on the radio.
When in reality,
your fan base will love this.
yeah. So we like we were doing research, like it was Chronicles or something. But really, in reality, it was nothing more than, hey, who's getting beer today? And this is like at 8 o'clock in the morning. I will, and there's only one. You have to go to the gas station because they're the only ones that are open.
And they usually have just a phenomenal microbrew section.
We made it work.
We did make it work. We did make it work. Through the magic of radio, we made it work. We turned it into something. Radio gold.
That's true. That was, but it was also TV as well, right? It was also TV because remember, our producer at that time, not nearly as good as our producer right now, was Don Cronin.
Don Cronin, the Barbarian. That's right. That's right.
Don Cronin was.
So then, of course, every Saturday you come home and you say, "I'm so exhausted from doing the radio show today. The first thing I need to do is I need to take a nap."
Yeah, right. You get up early. It's an early show.
So productive. So productive
early
on the show.
Get up early.
Very productive on the show. Yeah, that's right.
I feel like we got stuff done. I mean, we can go back in the archives and listen to the shows. I bet you there was some great information that went out.
Yep, I'm with you.
Great information. We could watch it. We could watch them, and I'm sure we look, exactly the same.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I haven't changed a bit.
It's only a couple years down the road. All right. So, so here we are. It's as we talked about last week. We're kind of moving into the new year. We're kind of full speed ahead. there's a lot of things happening in the in the world around us that I find very interesting. I wouldn't mind touching on a couple of these things today. Of course, politics is always a big issue, and how people are very interested in that, and and kind of how the new administration and all the things that all the sweeping changes that seem to be being made.
How about the $1.9 trillion check someone's about to write?
Starting with that. That's a lot of zeros.
Yep, we'd manage that.
Yeah,
yep.
so
yep.
We'll handle that. Yeah, we'll do the legal work
Get you a nice
on that.
brokerage account for that. Yep.
We're happy to write the manuscript on that.
Give the wire instructions. Yep.
So there's a lot happening. There's still some there's still this kind of feeling that there's one side versus the other, which is as especially where everybody kind of wants to move forward, everybody wants to kind of get to the next target to take down. It seems like that's not going away.
Well, it's funny. I was driving over today, and I was listening to some stuff on the radio, and they're talking about this exact issue, right? And the current dust up seems to be that the Democrats started off their their after their takeover, if you will, after their ascension to the control portions of the government, all three branches, right? So there was obviously this call for unity, this call for some bipartisanship, this call for sort of reaching across the aisle. And we may have talked about this on previous shows, but so part of me, of course, struggles with that. Part of me says, look, we need to really kind of get a sense of what the rules look like, because when the Democrats, depending on where you shake out on this, weren't the party in power, if you will, and didn't control the strings of the mechanics and the machinations of government, when they would ask for this idea of unity and this idea of bipartisanship,
they were told to quote unquote pound sand.
Yeah, I think that was it was probably a little bit more diplomatic, but that was essentially it. They were basically saying, well, let me just direct you to the exits here, because that's not how it works, because we quote won the election. That was the argument, right?
Sure.
We won the election. That's actually what they were told, right? We won the election. So here we are, right? As always, right? This is how the whole process works, right? You don't always win all the games. And so now there's a real discussion around, we need to do this in a bipartisan manner, and you need to take our feelings into consideration. Basically, you need to implement our policies, which is, very interesting. And the other thing, and I haven't seen a justification for it yet, but when the tax cut that happened during the previous administration was passed, it was done in exactly the same fashion that this tax cut, this not tax cut, but this stimulus package is being passed. It was done through that budget reconciliation process. Sure. So that's one of the areas that I'm sort of struggling with, which is this idea of I don't know. I don't know how to square that circle, I guess, is my point. I don't know how to do it.
I think there's a couple things in play here, and I think the big one is, of course, it's the overriding the thing that's not going away is the pandemic, right? So
correct.
So the
Not
pandemic
for 7 or 8 more months, maybe.
Right, so the pandemic is kind of that touches everybody, no matter what political affiliation or what that's here. So the difference between the last administration and this one is this administration is like, look, okay, this is the biggest problem that we have right this second.
Bar none.
This is the near target that we have to deal with, and it has to get this is our, for lack of a better term, this is our main effort. We need to, that's how it works.
Stop.
We need to focus all of or the majority of our forces onto this, right? And again, the politics piece of it, and as you know it, because you being a politician, you understand how this works. It's not like you're wrong, I'm right, you're wrong. And even though sometimes that's how the game is played, there are strategic times to reach across the aisle, because you're never going to bring everybody together. There's never going to be a time when everybody agrees on everything perfectly. It just won't happen. So both sides know. They know, look, okay, I know I need to get here, and in order for me to get here, which is move to this position, I need to get the other guys to move a little bit. And the only way I'm going to get the other guys to move a little bit, it's not going to be, hey, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm in charge, you're not.
Right.
They something has to give. There has to be some kind of compromise. And I mean, they understand that far greater than we do because that's what they do for a living, right?
Well, they're supposed to do that for a living. I mean, and by the way, and you also have to go into it with this understanding that, look, we'd like some compromise. These are the things that we'd like to see kind of make their way into the bill. These are the things that we'd like to sort of see come out of this, but also at the same time recommending that we don't necessarily control the process the way we would hope to have controlled the process. And then I guess one of the things that just perpetually confounds me is this idea that you somehow think, after sticking your thumb in everyone's eye for 4 years, that all of a sudden that you're going to not only be given a seat at the table, but you're really going to get a chance.
You're going to get to eat first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That you're going to get to really weigh in on this stuff. And again, I'm not suggesting that these people be put out to pasture and ignored. That is not my comment for anybody who thinks that's what I'm suggesting.
Maybe just a timeout.
I won't be ignored, Dan. I won't be ignored, Dan. But I mean, that's not the concept. But the idea is, I guess it goes back to, how do all of a sudden all the rules become different than the way they were implemented prior to this? And I guess that's kind of the question, right? Like, at some point you say to yourself, are you surprised? Please tell me you're not surprised, right? Like, please, at least.
Don't look like, aghast, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're treating me like this. What are you talking about?
I can't believe my calls are going to voicemail.
You're talking about
really?
Mitch McConnell, right?
Really? What do you mean you can't believe your calls are going to voicemail? Right. Where do you think those calls? Where did my calls go for 4 years? Right? Voicemail. They weren't even voicemail. I didn't even get voicemail, right? I get nothing. I get no answer. That's right. That's what I get, right? I call it a European number. It sounds so different. So this is now, look, from a money and law, money and politics and law perspective. Like, I think the idea here is what you mentioned a couple minutes ago, which is, look, this is priority number 1. Yeah. Everything else is priority 10, right? Like, we have to get this thing back on track. And by all accounts, the ending of this could potentially be mid to late summer, fall.
Right. So you could go back. You could go back in time and say, in our efforts in the particularly United States, but globally as well, in our efforts to try to fix this, but also to try not to take care of, not to worry about other things like the economy and business and all the other stuff. In our efforts to try and make everybody happy, here we are. We're at the point where we've as a country, as a per capita, we've suffered more than anybody else. And when you look at our numbers compared to some of these other places, particularly places that have much greater populations than we have, like a much different healthcare system than we have, and they're like laughing at us because they're like, you guys are the richest, biggest, smartest country in the world.
Can't figure it out.
And you couldn't figure this out, right? Yeah. Right, because why? Because people have to go to the movies, because, and you couldn't and you have you essentially have an unlimited amount of money, right? So you're concerned about these businesses, and you're concerned about these industries or these sectors of industry that are going to get really, really hurt by this. Why don't you figure that out? And if you want to give a stimulus to somebody who needs it. And this is one of the things, right, that's happening now, is that with this stimulus package, and granted, I'm the first stimulus package that went out was kind of just like a knee-jerk reaction, like we have to do something, right? And so you almost want to give somewhat of a pass on it in that it happened so quickly and they threw it together so fast that, all right, if they could go back and do it over again, they would do it differently, right?
Well, they were building the car while they were driving down the road. Yeah, absolutely, they were, for all the right reasons.
Yeah. So when you look at the package here, and you look at some, and now they're really looking like, say, hey, look, if I make $200,000 a year, guess what? I'd love to get $1,500 in the mail, but I don't need it, right?
Well, and here's the thing: you bring up a great point. We've talked about this all the way through the pandemic, right? We've talked about the beginning.
Christian, we've talked about this all through the pandemic.
The middle and the end, right? And we talked about in the beginning.
3 spots.
We wouldn't know at the time, a year ago, you didn't know what the other 2 looked like. You knew what the beginning was because we were living it, but we talked exclusively about the idea that...
You knew what it was, and you're like, is this really what I think it is?
Really? Like, That's right. And I'm locked down, and I'm in my house, and we're on Zoom, and we're doing our thing. So then we didn't know what the middle looked like. We didn't know what the end looked like. But here's the other thing we know. We also know, we have data, right? Like, you can go back and you can look at it and you can say, what did the first stimulus do, right? And there's all the, and again, you can disagree about some of the policies and you can disagree, but you definitely can put some numbers to it. And you can also go back, and this comes up a lot, there's a lot of analogies being made by, you go back and you look at during the financial crisis from, 07, 08, right after that, and some of the programs that the government put out and instituted after that. And there's a lot of evidence that says that if they had done more, the impact might have been to a lesser degree because there was, if more stimulus had been put on the table, and there was a lot of pushback. So again, we have not only, these aren't, this isn't sort of evidence and numbers based on 1929 where the economy is arguably completely different, the world is completely different.
Right.
I mean, this is near-term, relevant economic data that says this is what we spent, this is what we got out of it. And to your point, if you get $1,500 and you're making $350,000 a year, where's it going? I don't know, your brokerage account? I mean, It's not going back in the economy, right?
Nope.
That's where it's not going.
No.
So a lot of opportunities here to really be able to understand, look, we're trying to get to the finish line on this thing and get this back on track. How do we do it?
So I think what when we started the show, I think what is an attempt to happen now is that what the current administration, at least this is what it feels like, is they're trying to, because I feel like the biggest problem, the tragedy when all this is all said and done, when we 10 years from now, the tragedy of this is how the pandemic was politicized and how the treatment of the pandemic became a political rather than a scientific or an economic or anything else, but it became political, and because it was political, this is where we are. So it's almost as if the current administration is trying to unring that bell, and to some extent, as much as they can, to the extent of like, look, I don't care about this politics. I don't care about that politics.
Right.
I care. We have to take care of this.
I care about science and I care about economics.
No, but I care about the American people. I care about
exactly.
I care about like that. There's still people that like someone today is going to contract COVID and have to go in the hospital, and that person is going to have whatever the percentage chance is based on other comorbidities of walking out of that hospital. And that's
right. And in addition to that, there's a small business owner. There's somebody who works in the restaurant industry, somebody who works in the leisure business, who's saying, look, I need to make a decision. Are we going to try to keep this going for another month? Are we opening this spring? What do the vaccination numbers look like? Am I going to have people visiting my establishment? And I'm going to make a decision. Am I in or am I out?
Yeah.
And if I'm out, then that's a whole nother path,
sure.
a whole nother series of decisions, a whole different decision tree to figure out what goes on. So I think there's also some argument that says, look, can we just do this one time? Let's try to have this last stimulus package get us through the end of this thing, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
And then we can kind of move on to bigger and better.
Right. And the end may be just that. It may just be something that's much more manageable than this is, because it's not like the virus is going to go away, right?
No,
like it's going to go away.
No.
But it's something that we can, that as a country and as a global economic and global community, that we can manage. All right, let's take a quick break and then we'll be right back. We'll talk more about this. Is fun.
This is exciting.
This is really fun.
Exciting.
Stay with us. It's Saturday morning. I know you're enjoying this more than
Day
anything
before the
else.
Super Bowl.
That's right. All right,
Talk about that.
We'll be right back.
And we're back. Money Law, My FM 101.3, Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. John Drohan, Main for Financial Christian, steering us through the cosmos here as we talk all things money, all things law, a little bit of politics mixed in there. Maybe
Which
some
affects
sports,
law
maybe some
and
sports.
money.
Yep. We're not the sports guys that that run and gun on a regular basis, but we've been known to play in that space a little bit.
Well, as I was thinking about this as we were going into the break, I said this kind of off air, that sometimes I forget that you actually are a sports guy and you actually like sports because you're so scholarly and because you're so you're smart and because
we're around readers. Yeah, that's right.
But I'd be willing. You weren't the last guy picked when the teams were getting picked, right? No, you could hold your own, right? What sports did you play in high school?
Basketball, football, a little bit of track, and didn't do baseball. Should have done baseball. That was the one thing I kind of played, early on.
You'd have been good.
Oh yeah, I would have
been good.
I'd been a rock star.
You're built like it, right?
Yeah, I got a baseball build.
So what was your best game? What were you best at?
I don't think I was best. I mean, I was an average football player and an average basketball player.
What position did you play in football?
I was a guard because I went to a small Catholic high school.
You went to Arlington Catholic,
yes,
right? That's
So,
right, a guard.
So I was, but I was I was a small Catholic high school guard. I wasn't like Ohio State, like no neck, all shoulders.
So
like,
you were
no.
weighing in at what, 175 in high school?
I don't know.
I mean, that's something right there.
Whatever.
Like one of those lean pulling guards, right? You
Oh,
pull on the sweep,
yep,
right?
Yep. But
Yeah.
not, again, I make no claims to be. There are not songs written about my athletic ability in high school.
You had to block those backers, right? Like those inside backers. I mean, you open holes.
Yeah. I did my thing.
What about basketball? What did you play in basketball?
Forward.
Could you shoot?
No. You know what? Here's the mistake. I loved loved high school basketball. Wasn't a great basketball player because I had this bad habit of when the season ended, like basketball kind of ended for me, and I wasn't great about like working on my game in the off season.
Back to the gym.
Shooting
free throws.
No. I wasn't that guy. So my following season usually picked up with me like I needed to like kind of work out some of the rust a little bit, and my buddies who would all work and they'd all go with these off season camps and these off season.
Yeah, they played a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm like,
they stayed current.
Yeah, and I'd say to myself, how come I don't know about any of these things? What do you guys are playing the summer league all summer or whatever? I didn't know anything about that. So
this is ridiculous.
So I wasn't believe me, there was no Hoosiers moment for me. It wasn't that, but I loved high school basketball.
It was high school basketball back in the day was a fun. It was really.
I loved the practices. I loved the workouts. I loved the games. I just loved the sport.
The guys on the team. I mean, it was
loved the sport.
It was really fun.
And so a lot of fun. But we had, Arlington Catholic was blessed with some some phenomenal athletes.
Did you guys win? Were you guys a winning team?
Yeah, I mean, there's no state championship there. I mean, we were playing the Baylor Bears, but I mean, we did well. It's funny. So you get older. So I don't see a lot of these guys from high school. And again, there were some real athletes on some of these teams, not myself, not included. And I ended up playing on a softball team in Medford when I was younger. And so we played one of these other teams that a team that was filled with all these guys who were like superstar athletes in high school from Arlington Catholic, right? And we get up against these guys, and man, I tell you,
you weren't called for this team.
No, I was.
That's ridiculous.
I know,
right?
I know. So I'm on a different team. Our team focused on different extracurricular activities, and these guys still. So my point is, these guys all were still tremendous athletes.
Still good, yeah.
Tremendous athletes.
The reason you started.
I mean, there was one of these guys on the team. He could hit a baseball back in the day, a country mile, and here he is. How many years later, he could hit a softball 2 country miles, right? I mean, these guys still were tremendous athletes, all great guys. And I just remember saying to myself, man, I tell you that natural ability, it just doesn't necessarily fade away. So these guys were all super guys, and hats off to all of them. Because they smoked us, by the way. They completely smoked us.
Well, that's okay.
Great guys.
It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, but great guys. And so that's my but still a student of the sports piece. We're still like
right. And you're aficionado. You're a fan, right?
I'm a fan. Yeah. I love watching games. I'm a big soccer fan, big football fan. Yeah.
So speaking of football, tomorrow is the Super Bowl.
Yes, it is.
So who do you like?
Yeah, it's funny. This has come up a lot. I'm torn. I'm not going to lie. I'm torn. I mean, part of me wants to see Brady not win, because I feel a little bit like, left at the altar with the whole, like, I don't want to be here anymore. But then the other part of me says, the guy's greatness transcends everything. And, to see somebody play at that level and to play as well as he is and to see what a leader he is. And I read a bunch of articles this week about guys who are pro and con on it, right?
Yeah.
And the guys who are not Boston guys, for the most part, are like, go Brady. They want to see him excel.
Yeah, they want to see they want to see Michael Jordan-esque kind of stuff. They want to see that, right?
Yep. So so from that perspective, I'll call myself neutral in that. I mean, I'd like to see. I don't know. I'm torn about it.
It's funny how it's come down to him, right? It's come down to to him, but and rightfully so, because the argument is that team, that Tampa Bay team, They're not there if he's not there.
Well, he's a class act. They were interviewing him right after the game, and he's surrounded by all his teammates, and they ask him question number 1, they ask him question number 2. And I think they were going to ask him question number 3, and he literally says, come on, there's other guys on the team, talk to them. And he walks away like, I'm not, spread it out, you know.
But he also knows,
like, what a class
but he's
act.
been doing that for the last 20 years, right? He knows how to talk to the media. And so that's the thing is, like, so Brady's one of those guys, love him or hate him, there's things that you can't argue with, right? There's things that you can't, there's no argument in the fact that when Brady plays, when he plays in big games, when he plays, even in he's played in 9 Super Bowls. He's lost
Super Bowls.
He's lost 3. So two of them to my New York Giants.
Yep.
So I can talk about, I've been living in those 2 Super Bowls since 2007.
Yeah.
However, they argue, because people, I'll always make the joke when someone says, "Oh, let's talk about the Patriots," and I'm like, I'm a Giants fan. I don't think you want to talk to me about the Patriots.
And by the way, and losing those Super Bowls wasn't what a blowout. Those were lost by a whisker.
You took the words right out of my mouth. So that's the thing. So Brady in the Super Bowls that he lost, 2 to the Giants, 1 to the Philadelphia Eagles, all 3 of those, they're not Brady's fault.
Right.
For one, it's not like Brady's throwing.
Sure.
And the other thing is, he's 1 completion away, 1 completion in all 3 of those games from winning the game.
Yeah.
One, right? And the argument in the 2011 Super Bowl, when he hits Welker in the hands, and Welker drops the ball, that's a first down. That continues to drive, blah blah blah. And that's just it. He's there. He's he's right. And the fact that he wins 6. That he wins, and then the championship game, like just the numbers are staggering.
Well, and I think we talked about this in the show one time, but they were interviewing Ron Jaworski and one Super Bowl
appearance. The Polish rifle.
One Super Bowl appearance, right?
Yeah.
And they lost. And they're asking him about it, and they said, does losing that game bother you? How do you deal with that over the course of your career? And he says, he goes, when I was younger, he says, and I was still in the game. He said, losing that game at that time, I was obviously bummed out about it. He said, but it didn't bother me. He said, and the reason it didn't bother me was because you expect, after doing something like that, you expect to be there every year, right?
Yeah.
Like you say to yourself, there's no reason we're not going to come back and have another shot at this.
Yeah, we're that good, right?
Yep.
You're not. It's not like you go from like second best in the league to 20th in the league, right?
That's right. And so his point was, he says, as I've gotten older, I have a different appreciation. I realize now, or I understand now, how difficult it actually was to get there, and recognizing that I may not, he didn't say I would have left more in the field, because that wasn't who he was.
He left more than he probably left more than he should have on the field.
That's right. That's right. But his point was, I recognize how difficult it is to get there, right? So this goes back to this whole Brady Belichick, who pulled who along, and part of me really feels like I think that's the wrong discussion to have, because it really is a team struggle.
Yeah, and they have 2 different jobs, right? There's 2 different, like Belichick not only as the coach, but he's also the GM, so he puts the team together, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's not Brady's job.
No.
But so Belichick does that, so it's like he puts that team together.
Yeah, so this discussion,
consistently,
like this week, it came out like none of those coaches threw those passes. No, okay, you're right, they didn't. But you know what? But in a lot of cases, and I don't know enough about the inner workings of the Patriots playbook to say, is Brady making any of those decisions? Or is every one of those decisions made by Belichick? Because according to the current situation, they're like, well, he kind of works almost like a player coach at this point. And okay, so you're that much time in the industry, and you're that great. Sure, why wouldn't you, right? How do you not? You're not going to piss him off, right? You're not going to say, well, it's my way or the highway, Tom.
Yeah.
I've never won one. I won one. You won a ton, so I'm not going to listen to you. But I don't know. I just that type of discussion bothers me, because I feel like all of a sudden now, like 20 years after going to the Super Bowl as many times as they did, now all of a sudden, because Brady's having a phenomenal season in Tampa Bay, that everyone like second guesses, well, maybe Belichick's not the sage wonder, wise wonder that he's claimed.
Yeah, that doesn't hold a ton of water with me.
I don't think it does either. I don't think it does either.
And I don't think it's like, and I don't think it's. I agree with you. I don't think it's like one or the other. I think the both of them complemented one another. I think one of the nuances about their relationship, which probably added to their is that they weren't buddies, right? They weren't. No. They weren't like, but they were.
They were contemporaries. They were professionals.
They were coworkers, right? And they were professionals, and they both wanted it, but they weren't pals. It wasn't like, there wasn't that kind of that closeness between the two of them. That probably, because Bill or whomever, the both of them kind of stayed at arm's length from one another. Yeah. That enabled them to develop to the coach / and quarterback that they were. And I argue that that's a reason that helped them to do everything that they did for that long a period of time.
Yeah, people talk a lot about how they didn't have the weapons and the Patriots didn't want to spend to bring in the weapons. And then there was again read another article that went down and said, look, here's all the things the Pats did. Now they didn't work out, but here's all the things that the Pats did to try to provide him with the weapons that he needed. So it wasn't an unwillingness on the team's part.
They just struck out.
People just didn't. They did. Whoever the players they picked just didn't execute. They've always had a tough time in these areas getting those players or getting those talented positions. With the exception of a couple of the Randy Mosses of the world, where you kind of just get lucky to get like another phenomenal season out of somebody that you might not ever get again. And that's kind of like the Bill Walton, 86. If we can get one season out of him, he can make the difference. Sure. And they did, right? So. But they didn't have it. But it wasn't for lack of trying, I guess is my point.
No, it wasn't for lack of trying, and it wasn't for lack of even trying for the players that didn't work out. It's not like those guys. It's not like those guys try to mess up.
Yeah,
they don't work hard. Of course they do.
Of course they want to succeed.
They're professionals.
Yeah.
These guys are pros. There's no, especially when you're with an organization like the Patriots that are used to winning. It's like you come in. I can't imagine like you come in there as a new guy and you're like, I need to get to work. Like I need to, So it's not like they're like, I'm just going to give it, I'm going to half step this, because those guys, they don't last. They're gone, and they get rid of them. Like what's his name, who's at Tampa Bay now, Antonio Brown. When Antonio Brown, when he shows up and he starts acting up, they're like, nope, see you never. Like we don't. That's how we do things around here.
Yeah. So that bothered me, and then the other thing that was getting under my skin was this idea that like that Brady went to Tampa Bay and turned it all around, not by himself per se, but like that he clearly critical component to that success. But then I'm like, oh yeah, but then you bring Gronkowski along with you, and then Antonio Brown shows back up again, and you say to yourself, all right, so it's like when you all show up together and say, hey, can we play? I mean, okay, that's
your team changes, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly. You're right.
It's like those guys from Arlington Catholic. They show up. Hey, listen, Jay, our team just disbanded. You guys got any room on your team? Yeah. Tommy here. Yeah, he only played AA ball, right?
Yep, that's right. They played college ball, right? I mean, so when those guys show up, and you're like, all right, they're naturally gifted, ridiculous athletes. They understand, and Brady's worked with them before. Again, this goes back to it wasn't like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers made some unbelievably calculated decision 3 years ago to give up a couple of draft picks, and so I always struggle when these people just kind of show up and say, hey, if we pull together this ridiculous crew of talent who all decide to play over here, and then we win it all, okay, of course you won it all. That's a lot different than teams
and being in it every year.
Well, not even that, but it's a lot different than teams that go out and make some of these calculated decisions not knowing the outcome. I mean, what do you think is going to happen when you bring that level of talent in and say, hey, do we think we can win some more games?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. If we have the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game with arguably one of the greatest tight ends who's ever played the game.
Good argument.
If we put them together, we might do something here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when they show up and knock on the door, again, that's a lot different than the Bucs GM saying, "Look, here's what we're going to do.
We're going to make some moves.
Let's make some moves. Like let's do a Red Auerbach-esque move where we have to look 6 drafts into the future to see who we're going to get."
Coach, Bob Cousy doesn't play for us anymore. We can't trade him.
Like this is like who else did this? Was it the Heat that did this, where they just kind of everybody said, "Oh, we all want to go"? Well, they were following LeBron
so I went
around.
to Miami, right? And LeBron went to Miami, and
then they all went.
Yeah, but then remember what happened? They only won one, right?
That's right.
They only won one, and remember that was the whole thing. LeBron's like, we're going to win 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Right.
and so in that argument, you're like, yeah, you can bring people and you can be good, but can you sustain it? And remember, it's a business, right? They have to. There's money. They have to manage the money. They have to like players. They get to a certain point in their career. They're eligible for the whole free agency thing. That's a whole different language that you have to be able to speak.
But when a team of all-stars shows up on your front porch and says, "Hey, any room for us?"
You should win.
I mean, you should win.
Yeah.
But again, is it real? I don't know. Is it really winning? Is it the same as?
Well,
I don't know. Is it a Moneyball moment where you say, "Look, we took these guys, we did the work, we rolled our sleeves up, we really," versus, "Oh well, we played the Harlem Globetrotters for 15 games and they won 11 of them. Surprise!"
So the answer to that question is when you have a team that is, for any sport, that is a collection of greatness, right? That are all-stars and arguably could be, at that particular point in time, like they have some of the greatest players on that, and then they don't win. Case in point, my 2007 New York Football Giants, when they beat the Patriots, which was arguably the greatest team ever. They were going to go undefeated season.
Yes.
The numbers that Brady was putting up that year were like numbers that you hadn't seen in this era.
Yep.
Yeah. And they seemed unstoppable.
Yes,
unstoppable.
they did.
So the answer is you got to play the game, right? And you got to show up. And great players sometimes don't play great, or great players get outplayed by players who aren't great or are just great that day, right? And that's the beauty of sports.
But it's also the law of averages, right? I mean, you put those guys on the field, you're going to win more times than not.
Sure.
And you're right, one game, right? Any given Sunday, right? Anything can happen, that's fine. But, collectively, you're clearly tipping the odds in your favor, however you want to, whatever analogy you want to use. That's my question is it the same? Is it the same? I'm sure it feels the same. I'm sure it looks the same. I'm sure it feels just as great, But
then it's like, why don't teams do it every single year?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that.
It seems like basketball, like NBA basketball, is kind of it's hedging towards that, where the NBA is like, where you have to have this collection. You have 3 superstars, right? And if you have 3 superstars,
everybody wants their own big 3.
Then you're in the fight, right?
Yeah,
then you're going to be in the fight, and then it comes down to, right, as long as your superstars do what superstars are supposed to do, right? Who's the supporting cast, right? And if those guys can step up, and you can, and again, like the NBA has kind of come down. A lot of it's come down to coaching and how to defend some, the really, really good teams. So yeah, it's teams will do that. They'll put together. We're going to put together an all-star team, but is that all-star team going to be able to perform against another? Because essentially, it's like the real. Great teams.
But I guess the question is, from what direction is that coming, right? Mm-hmm. When Danny Ainge says, "Look, we're going to trade for Kevin Garnett, right? And we're going to and here's what we're going to give up, like we're going to make some decisions here." And so, from my perspective, and from what you're saying is, there's a discussion, right? There's a discussion. If the Buccaneers are saying to the Patriots, "Look, we want Tom Brady.
Yeah.
We want him, and we want him, and we want you to give us him, and we want you to give us Gronkowski, and we want you to give us Antonio Brown. And here's what we're going to give up, right, to get him, to get them, right? Okay, that's exactly what you just said, right?
That's,
teams trying to put together.
That's building a team.
And they're going to figure out the money, and they're going to figure out who they're going to get rid of. Right? So that's one way to do it. And I feel like, okay, that was a real move, right? That was a real move.
Yeah, that's it, right. That's your risk. That's a risk, right?
Right. But that feels different to me than those 3 just showing up on the doorstep.
Brady, remember, they're like, no one wants to give Brady a 3-year
deal. Yep,
and Tampa Bay's like, we'll give him one.
Understood,
right? And then Gronkowski comes out of nowhere and says, I want to play football again.
Right.
And then Antonio Brown said, my parole officer says I can play football
again. As long
as
I wear this thing on my ankle, I'm fine.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. But I guess, like I said, that to me seems different. That's a pull versus a push, right? And so to me, that feels a little bit like, okay, I don't know. It just feels different. It doesn't feel the same as we're building something versus no, don't build that. Here, we'll do it. We'll do it all for you, and you guys get to just sit back and go. I mean, I'm not sure I like the direction of how that whole thing comes together, because it doesn't seem like there's that wheeling dealing. What do I give up to get? What do I get?
It doesn't.
I mean, if next year, I don't know who they're going to be, right? Pick guys from any other team, right? If next year they all just turn around and say to their team, "Hey, I'm out. First of all, I want to be in Tampa, and I'm just going to Tampa, and I'm just going to try to get on that team." Like, well, okay, but does that mean that Tampa's building something, or is everybody just going to Tampa to say, "Hey, we want to get on this gravy train while we can get on it"? And is that that's different to me than what goes on in those GM offices to say we're trying to build a team.
That's not Moneyball. That's not money. You like Moneyball.
Oh, I don't like everybody saying, "Hey, what if we all go?
Yeah,
we'll win."
Yeah.
Well, okay, but what about the other? Whatever.
I don't know. I also.
Well, I know I'm overthinking it. You could say
no.
I'm overthinking.
No. How can I say you overthink? Right? I like the fact. So the other side of this argument is, or that most people up around here are having the same 20-minute conversation that Jay and I have, and then there's that other team that's playing in the Super Bowl. Which, here's what I think. I think Mahomes, from a quarterback standpoint, if Mahomes is on and having his game, it's over.
I think you're right.
Then lock it up. I don't care if Brady has the greatest game in history. If Mahomes is on, because he's that good.
Oh, he's the real deal.
He's that good, and and that's the thing. Again, I'm not taking anything away from Tom Brady. I think he's
done all right in his career.
No, but even now, even playing right now, so
the level he's playing at, yeah.
But now, can Brady do the same things that Mahomes can do, or Rodgers? Nope, he can't. He can't, and he knows it, and he doesn't try and do it. Now, Mahomes, on the other hand, will. I mean, if things aren't happening the way they're supposed to happen during the play, Mahomes says, "Ooh, I need to make some adjustments." And because of my
play,
and not only because of my athletic ability, because he's an incredible athlete, but because he knows how to play that. He knows how to play that position. He knows how defenders are. He knows where the argument is that Brady beats you before the snap, right? So Brady comes up, he sees he can make an adjustment, he can make the play, he can make the call. Where Mahomes or like the athletic quarterbacks will beat you after the snap. Mahomes will beat you before and after the snap. And remember who his coach is. Don't take nothing away from Andy Reid.
Yeah.
My longtime nemesis in the NFC East, because he coached for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Eagles always had my Giants number because of Andy Reid.
Right.
So as much as it would be cool if Brady wins, like I'm with you. Like if they win and he does that and he gets to that next level and he has a good game, and it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a close game.
It's going to be a great game. Yeah.
Then that wouldn't. I'm not a Brady hater. I'm like, you know what? Then that's I will give credit and greatness, and that's something to see. On the other hand, if Kansas City wins, and Kansas City wins because all these guys that they have such a tremendous, they have incredible offense and their capability, then you're like, well, they won because they're a better team.
Well, and it's one of those few opportunities where you get to sit back and say, look, I don't really have a skin in the game. Put the Brady thing aside, obviously, but I have a skin in the game. Neither one of my jerseys are on the field. I really don't care who wins, but I'm going to see some great football. I'm going to see a great game. It's going to be fun, and it's going to be weird because you're not going anywhere for it. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's going to be a home game for everybody for the most part.
Which is fun, which is okay.
It's all right. I like to go somewhere.
I mean, nothing like a good Super Bowl party. I will say this. You know who has had I think the last Super Bowl party I went to in my neighborhood, our buddy Ryan Hanstead had a Super Bowl party. Yeah, and. Yeah, because I won't go to a Super Bowl party if my Giants are playing.
You stay home and focus.
Right. Well, I bring everybody.
That's why you go to so many Super Bowl parties. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah, we're going to take a real quick break.
Take a quick break. We'll be right back. Money the Law, My FM 101.3.
Been to 5 Super Bowl parties.
Yeah,
5.
We'll be back.
4 for 5.
And we're back. My FM 101.3. Jay Marsden with the Marsden Law Group. And John Drohan talking Super Bowls, talking high school athletics, talking high school not that athletic, talking a whole bunch of different things.
I like the Catholic.
So there's a huge discussion around, again, goes back to what we talked about in the beginning, right? How the impact of COVID. How many people are they letting in the Super Bowl? Do you know?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I know they're letting people in.
I think maybe call it 20,000 in a stadium. A stadium that might hold 60, right? So
so a third of the seats will be filled.
So it's the economics of it are going to be completely different, right? Because a lot of these towns, right, a lot of these communities, they talk about you're flying down on a Super Bowl package, you're zipping down to Tampa for the long weekend.
They say they make $500 million.
Real
money.
That'll be really curious to see what the effect of that looks like. Whether or not that's going to, obviously there's going to be a real letdown from that perspective. So I don't know what that does for
again. This is all fallout from the pandemic.
Yeah,
I mean, and that's across the board. That's think about all of the professional sports that have had to deal with that through the course of the past year. All the big money college sports.
Oh, right? No March Madness last year. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah,
all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
and of course that's real and that's tragic and that affects that doesn't affect like LeBron James or Tom Brady or those guys, they want to have fans in the stands.
I think they still get paid. Yep.
Yeah,
yep.
But it affects the guys, like all the jobs and all the opportunity,
all the people
money.
who work in the concessions, all the people who work in the bars and restaurants around the stadiums, all the anything related to that activity 8 times a year, right? Or in whatever town you're in, or depending on the sport, right? Could be 62 times a year. Who knows, right? So all kinds of challenges around that, and this goes back to this, from a pandemic perspective, right? Those are real numbers.
Yeah.
And you think about all the restaurants and establishments around the Boston Garden, for example. Some of those that are iconic, closed down this year and said, look, we're just not sure we can make it. And these are places that even if the owners, without the pandemic, said, look, I'm ready to get out of the business anyway.
Yeah.
They at least potentially, without owning real estate, had a concern that they could sell and say, look, I'm stepping out, but I'm going to sell my business. Sure. I'm going to walk off into retirement, and this place is going to stay here, and it's going to keep on doing everything it's been doing for 100 years or whatever's going to happen.
And I'm sure that's part of their estate plan, right? They're
absolutely.
Like, if that business has value, then I mean, you think that the what's my downtown Boston bar, the Rose and
Black Rose?
The Black Rose. Do you think the name the Black Rose has any value to
sure,
it? You bet it does, right?
Well, and then how do you value it, right? How do you, going forward, if you're trying to get out of this business, let's say you survive the pandemic and you're trying to get out of this next year.
Now what, right?
How do you sit down and say, well, let's look at, let's only take the good years, right? Because you can't, nobody's going to do that. So how do you build in, that type of evaluation or that type of valuation into something like that? And, are you picking up, business interruption insurance? Are those premiums going through the roof? Because if you had something like that, would that help you ride something like this out? And is that something that you build into your business model?
And who insures that? Like, what's that? What does that look like? And what are those policies? Like, what that's a whole nother animal. Is like, right? So you say, look, if I have a business interruption insurance policy that's going to pay my employees,
right,
and pay me and pay my all of my bills for a year, if another version of the pandemic shows up, I mean, what's the bottom line on that?
Yeah. And most of that business interruption stuff is all related to sort of what we've talked about before, right? Like a short-term, finite,
real short-term,
right, beginning, middle, and end, right? Like, oh, there was a fire in the building. Well, they're going to clean the building up.
Yeah.
They're going to clean up the water damage. They're going to rebuild, and you're going to reopen in 6 months, right? Because it's going to happen, right? Yeah. And in the meantime, this is what we're going to do, as opposed to, well, we have an open-ended risk on the back end that we really have no idea when that's going to wrap up.
You're not going to get insured to cover that for a year.
I don't know. And if you are, the premiums are so outlandish that you really have to decide whether or not it even
the insurance company
cost-benefit analysis.
The underwriting of that, they're laughing, they're giggling as they're sliding the paper across the table. Like, there you go.
Yeah. So all of those things related to things like these sporting events. A lot of these businesses affected by the pandemic, and affected by this type of. We started the show off by talking about the stimulus package. This is arguably the case for going big, right?
Yeah.
And if you die, and on top of that, a lot of the money that's in the pandemic is coming back in the relief package is going to cities and towns who can't run deficits on their budgets, and they have to pay for everything. So if they don't have the revenue, then they're really up against it. and it's cut time, and then you got to figure out how that's going to work. So
you think about it, like these cities, right? Like because they'll announce like where the next Super Bowl is going to be. So these guys. So if you're a business or you're like say you're a hotel or you have a direct impact on this. The Super Bowl coming to your town, or the Olympics coming to your town or your city is going to make a huge difference. You're going to, once you know that, once that's confirmed, you're going to start making decisions. You may make some investments into your business in order to take advantage of that because that's what you have to do. And it's not like businesses do this stuff just because like they want to. They have to. And people sometimes forget this. Yeah. You forget that like businesses need to make money. Like they need to be profitable.
They need revenue. They need to be profitable.
They need to be profitable, and they need to be profitable as much as they can to the extent of what the market allows them to be.
Right.
Because if they're not, then when things get harder for whatever the reason, whether it be competition, whether it be forces outside of their control, whether it be pandemics or whether it be political things, anything, they need to be able to weather those storms. That's why you need to make. That's why Apple makes as much money. That's why Apple has $500 billion in the bank, right? Yep. And people say, well, they have so much money. They have so much money. Yeah, because you know what Apple has to do?
You know what their carrying costs are? Yeah, just to turn the lights on at Apple every day.
But Apple also has to be. They have to be relevant all the time. They have to be 2 steps ahead of the game. So because they make as much money, and the reason they have that money is because think about how the industry itself of technology and how much it changes and how fast it changes. So Apple Apple can't afford to put themselves in a position where they're outdated. Right. So that's why a company like that has to make as much money as they can. That's why a business owner, like a hotel owner in Boston, let's say that the Olympics are coming to Boston. That's why he's going to or she's going to expand their capabilities in order to be able to take advantage and to have more people show up at their hotel for when the Olympics come, because they need to hit it. They need to hit that home run, because that changes their business plan. That changes.
Well, a lot of the businesses are seasonal. You think about the people on the Cape, right? They get 6 months to make their money, right? Maybe even less, right?
Exactly.
Make it happen. So they got to be prepared. They got to be relevant. They got to be ready to go, because when the snow flies, they're like, all right, well, this is our season, so we got to kind of go away and then rebuild this every year again. So it's not easy. So that's prepare for the weather. Never mind the pandemic. So. I know we're going to go. I know we're going to cut it short, but
not that short.
Not that short. But well, let's have a great Super Bowl, everybody. Enjoy, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention the fact that it snowed the other day. You psyched, right?
We'll talk later. We'll talk later.
Yeah,
we'll
18 feet of snow.
Next show.
There's tears streaming down.
With a snow shovel, by the way. No snow blower. Snow shovel.
That's
old
my
school.
boy. Yeah,
old
you
school.
are old school. That's Arlington. That's Arlington.
Right there.
That's
Old
Medford.
School.
That's Medford snow. All right, we'll see everybody next week.
Have a great week, everybody.